Once upon a time, in a quiet kingdom nestled between rolling hills, there lived a young girl named Cinderella. She was the daughter of a kind merchant whose love for her had made every day feel like spring. Her days had been filled with joy, the house echoing with laughter, the smell of fresh bread wafting from the kitchen, and the soft melodies of her father's lute. But all of that vanished when her father fell ill and passed away, leaving her in the clutches of her cruel stepmother and her two vapid daughters. Cinderella's world became cloaked in ash and shadows, the remnants of a life that once held promise. The stepmother, greedy and envious, stripped away the girl's silks and jewels, forcing her into the rough garb of a servant. Her days were spent scrubbing floors, mending dresses and cooking meals until her hands were raw and blistered. Yet it wasn't the endless chores or the taunts that unsettled Cinderella the most. It was the attic. Her room was tucked high above the rest of the house, where cobwebs hung like veils and the wind whistled mournfully through the cracks. Some nights, as she lay on her straw mattress, she swore she heard whispers, soft, fleeting sounds like a child's laughter, faint and mocking. She would glance toward the cracked mirror on the far wall and see movement, though she remained still. Her reflection always seemed a fraction slower, her face not quite her own. When the royal invitation arrived, announcing a grand ball to find a bride for the prince, hope stirred in Cinderella's heart. The chance to escape her misery, even for one night, was intoxicating. But her stepmother dashed her hopes with a sneer, tearing the invitation in two and tossing it into the fire. "Dreams are for girls who matter," she said, her voice sharp as broken glass. Cinderella watched the parchment curl and blacken in the flames, and for the first time in years, tears spilled down her cheeks. She fled to the garden, the only place where she felt close to her father, and collapsed beneath the willow tree. As the moonlight bathed her in silver, she whispered to the night, "Please, someone, anyone, help me." The air grew still, unnaturally so. From the shadows stepped a woman clad in shimmering silver, her face framed by golden curls and an unearthly smile. "My dear," she said, her voice smooth and sweet, "why do you cry?" Cinderella blinked through her tears. "Who are you?" "A friend," the woman replied. Her smile widened, revealing teeth too perfect, too sharp. "I am your fairy godmother, here to make your dreams come true." The fairy godmother extended her hand, and a chill ran down Cinderella's spine. "Close your eyes," the woman murmured. "Picture yourself as you wish to be." Cinderella obeyed, and as she did, a strange sensation washed over her, cold, like frost creeping over her skin. When she opened her eyes, her tattered dress had been replaced by a gown of shimmering blue silk, and her feet were encased in glass slippers that glowed faintly in the moonlight. "Beautiful," the godmother said, circling her. But her gaze lingered too long, her smile too tight. "You will dazzle them all. But remember, my dear, magic is delicate. At the stroke of midnight, the spell will break. Everything comes at a price." Cinderella barely heard her, too entranced by her reflection in the pond. She hardly recognized herself. The godmother's words faded as the sound of horses approached. A gleaming carriage carved from gold and ivory awaited her. "Go," the godmother urged, her voice soft but insistent. "Claim your destiny." Cinderella hesitated. "Why are you helping me?" The godmother's smile deepened. "Because you asked." The grand hall of the castle shimmered with light, chandeliers casting golden reflections on marble floors. Cinderella's entrance drew gasps from the crowd. She moved like a vision, her gown flowing like water, her slippers catching the light like prisms. All eyes turned to her, but it was the prince's gaze that held her captive. He was everything she had imagined, handsome, regal, with an easy charm that set her at ease. He approached her, bowing low. "May I have this dance?" he asked, his voice warm and inviting. For the first time in years, Cinderella felt seen, felt valued. She smiled and placed her hand in his, letting him guide her to the center of the room. The orchestra swelled, and they moved together as if they had known each other all their lives. For a moment, she allowed herself to believe in happily ever after. But as they twirled, something caught her eye. A figure standing at the edge of the ballroom. A girl in a pale, tattered dress, her face obscured by shadows. She seemed familiar, but when Cinderella turned to look directly at her, the girl was gone. Cinderella's unease grew as the night wore on. The figure appeared again and again, always just out of reach, always watching. And then the clock struck midnight. Panic surged through her as she remembered the godmother's warning. She pulled away from the prince and fled, her heart pounding. One slipper slipped from her foot as she ran, but she didn't stop. She didn't dare. The next morning, the prince's men scoured the kingdom, searching for the girl who had captured his heart. When they arrived at Cinderella's home, the stepmother tried to hide her, but there was no stopping destiny. The slipper fit perfectly, and the prince swept her away to the castle. Their wedding was a grand affair, the kind that inspired ballads and tales for generations. Cinderella felt as if she were living a dream, yet beneath her joy, a strange unease lingered. In the mirror, she sometimes caught glimpses of her old rags, her reflection not quite aligning with her movements. On the night of the wedding celebration, the fairy godmother appeared again, her presence as startling as the first time. She held the other glass slipper in her hands, her smile as sharp as ever. "You forgot something, my dear," she said, holding it out. Cinderella hesitated but took the slipper, slipping it onto her foot. A strange chill coursed through her and she gasped. The clock struck midnight and stopped. Time ground to a halt. The music cut off mid-note. The guests frozen in place, their faces fixed in joyous masks. The air grew heavy, oppressive. Cinderella turned to the prince, but he stood motionless, his eyes empty. From the shadows, the girl emerged. This time, there was no mistaking her. She was Cinderella's mirror image, but her gown was tattered, her face pale and sunken. Her twin. "You don't remember me, do you?" the twin said, her voice a cold whisper. "You took everything, my life, my name, and now I've come to take it back." The twin stepped closer, her movements jerky and unnatural, like a marionette controlled by invisible strings. "Do you remember the attic, the mirror, the laughter?" she hissed. "That was me. Trapped, forgotten, while you lived in my place." Cinderella staggered back, her mind reeling. Memories flooded her, fleeting images of another child, a sister, crying as their mother performed a desperate ritual. The fairy godmother had been there, her face ageless, her smile the same. "You were dying," Cinderella said, her voice trembling. "Mother said she had no choice. She begged the fairy godmother to save you." And she did, the twin spat, her eyes glinting with malice, by giving you my life. Cinderella's knees buckled, but she caught herself against a frozen table. Her mind churned, trying to reconcile the memories with the girl standing before her. I didn't know, she whispered. I didn't know what she... You didn't care, the twin shrieked, her voice echoing unnaturally in the frozen hall. You took it all. My life, my laughter, my place in the world. While I've rotted in the cracks of time, nothing but a shadow. Cinderella tried to speak, but her twin surged forward, gripping her shoulders with icy fingers. The touch burned, a frostbite that spread through her chest. You will feel what I've felt. Every moment of anguish, every scream swallowed by silence, the twin hissed. The mirrors lining the ballroom began to ripple like water, and within them, Cinderella saw herself, but not as she was now. Her reflection showed her gaunt, her face streaked with tears and ash, her eyes hollow. It was a life she could have lived, should have lived, if not for the godmother's magic. What do you want from me? Cinderella asked, tears streaming down her face. The twin tilted her head, a wicked grin spreading. What was taken must be returned. Your life for mine. Before Cinderella could respond, the fairy godmother appeared, her presence even more chilling than before. She clapped her hands and the frozen air hummed with power. Enough, girls, she said, her tone one of mock indulgence. It's not polite to fight at a celebration. You, Cinderella gasped, anger and desperation flooding her. You did this. You lied to my mother. The godmother smirked. Lied? No, my dear. I delivered exactly what she asked for. A life saved. A daughter spared. I never promised it wouldn't come at a cost. Cinderella's twin turned to the godmother, her expression darkening. You told me I could have it back, she said. You promised me. The godmother laughed, a cold, hollow sound. Oh, sweet girl, promises are such slippery things. I said you'd have your chance. What happens now is up to you both. The twin lunged at Cinderella, and they tumbled to the floor. The glass slippers on Cinderella's feet began to glow, cracking under the weight of the twins' fury. The ground beneath them seemed to ripple like liquid glass, pulling them into a world of swirling shadows and fractured reflections. Cinderella fought to break free, her heart pounding as the twins' icy grip tightened. Please, she gasped. We can share this. We can both live. Share, the twins snarled. There was never enough for both of us. One life, one soul. In a desperate act, Cinderella reached down and pulled the glass slipper from her foot. The world seemed to shudder as she held it aloft, the cracks spreading like spiderwebs across its surface. If this is what ties us, then it ends now, she said, her voice trembling but resolute. She smashed the slipper against the floor. Light exploded from the shards, blinding and searing. The twin let out a scream that pierced the frozen air, and Cinderella felt herself falling, the world dissolving around her. When she opened her eyes, she was back in the attic of her childhood home. The air was still, the whispers gone. She stumbled to the cracked mirror, expecting to see her reflection. Instead, the twin stared back at her, a faint, knowing smile on her lips. We're not so different now, the twin whispered from the glass. And then she was gone. Cinderella sank to the floor, the weight of everything pressing down on her. The fairy tale was over. and she was left with a truth no one would ever believe. Happily ever after had never been hers to claim. Thank you for joining us in the world of Twilight Fables. If you enjoyed this tale and want to hear more stories like this, please subscribe and hit the notification bell for more.